Hello and welcome to this transfer deadline day Hearts Standard special, or one day previous to the transfer deadline day, because I might release this on Sunday evening. My name is Joe Sked and I'm joined by Craig Cairns. We are here to discuss none other than that transfer window in January 2006, specifically the players that arrived, of course. In 11 months' time, we'll probably do a big written feature on the 20-year anniversary of the window, and hopefully try and speak to the people that are involved. But for now, we couldn't not discuss that with the transfer deadline day happening on Monday the 3rd and running until 11 p.m. We'll be around to jump on if there were anything happening, but we'll see what tomorrow or Monday or today brings, depending on when you're listening to this. So, going back to 2006, over the course of 31 days, Hearts Midlothian signed no fewer than 11 first-team players. The year started off with Hearts 4 points off Celtic at the top of the SPL. We'll not discuss the game that took place on New Year's Day at Tynecastle that day. That's one that still haunts me to this very, very day. So, skipping past that, Craig, hello, and how are you? And also, what are your memories of that window?
First of all, I know you don't want to talk about it, but my memories of that game is just as one, as like talking as a neutral. It's like it's one of the better sort of what do they call them? Like title. What do they call them? Two title challengers face off against each other, because there was like there were four points in it. A win took it for Hearts to get to 1. And Celtic eventually did take it to 7, so it was pivotal. It was really pivotal in the title race, and not only that, it was a great game, and like Hearts, one of their better halves of football, maybe ever, but definitely that season. And then an absolutely like a catastrophe in the second half. So yeah, it was both one of the best and worst games I've ever been to. It sticks out for that. But
yes. So just to jump in on that, and if we are going to discuss it, the first half performance is one of the best 45 minutes.
Yeah,
I can remember. You know who still really stands out for me that day is Callum Elliott.
Yeah, I was watching something recently, and it's really. I forgot just how crucial a role he had played in quite a lot of wins.
Mm-hmm.
That near post run, he scored that goal over and over again. Now, Hearts scored a similar sort of get it down one of the sides, cut back, and then Hartley or Goncalves or Bednar or whoever was there to tap it in. But this one, it was more of like a sort of striker. These ones were like more strikers' instincts, getting to the near post ahead of the defender and putting it in the bottom corner. He scored that goal like 4 or 5 times or something. He scored that goal, and there was other times where he was like working the channels and feeding other players and getting assists. And it's a shame the way Callum Elliott's career. I mean, that's a whole story in itself. The way Callum Elliott's career went at Hearts, but he was kind of a target for a while, but 2 years after this or something, he became a bit of a target, really sort of unfairly, when the whole club was a mess and they're picking on this young player.
Yeah, he released that dance video again. This is actually that'd be a brilliant interview podcast.
I'm sure you'd love to talk about all that.
But yeah, that game was probably still, I think, probably the most devastated I've been coming away from a game. Certainly, most.
It happened.
There's a few that could be described as a fair few could be described as that. But yeah, that was heartbreaking. Anyway, what are the transfer window? What are your memories of those 31 days?
Yeah, just chaos. It was chaos because it was already a period where. I mean, I'm going over old ground here. Everybody's well aware of the start Hearts had that season, and then there's all these talks about big names. I was thinking about this recently. I wonder what big names were available to Hearts at that point, because there would, or like decent names, like even like in the ballpark of George Burley or something like that, because there would have been managers looking at that thinking, I fancy a crack at the Scottish title. I mean, it might fall away, but I mean, at that point, I'm sure there would have been a fair few managers wanting to have a go. But no, instead we went with a yes man. I mean, for whatever, I think Romanov let the mask slip a couple of times in interviews, but what exactly the reasons that he kind of had over him, or why he saw him as kind of like a yes man, or thought he could, I'm not entirely sure, but that seemed to be the case. So yeah, it was just a very sort of strange time. So in some ways it was that shit, and it was and in other ways it was just it just become the norm. It quickly become the norm after Romanov. It'd just been a wild sort of roller coaster in the year before that, from him saving the club and taking over, spending all that money, the fast start to the season, and then all the meddling, and it all came crashing down so quickly. Although Hearts were in a sort of weird position at that point. So at the same time, you wonder how Hearts would have continued if there just hadn't been the disruption between then and the end of the season, even under Graham Ricks, because the players were there to be better than most of the teams that were facing from week to week.
I just remember, I can't remember too much about the from the 1st to the 30th around the transfer window, but I remember the whole saga around Mirsad Beslija, because it's like it was close. Hearts were close to signing him, and then I don't know if they tried to renege or renegotiate, and then Genk were like, "No, you've already agreed to the fee you're going to pay us." So then Hearts had to reluctantly agree to Mirsad Beslija becoming officially the club's record signing ever. So that's one that stood out, and kind of how that played out. And then also just remember listening to, I think it was on BBC, it was on Radio Scotland, and I think it was Through the Window with Richard Gordon and an assortment of guests, and it just felt like it was just. It's weird talking about it, because now everything gets played out on social media, or you've got 24-hour news news channels. But going back then, and it's just it's a bit surreal thinking about it. But you're just listening to the radio, and that's how you're getting your information straight away. And it just felt, I know this wasn't the case, but it just felt like it was like every half hour, oh no, Hearts have signed another player. Oh, Hearts have signed another player. And as a, how old was I at the time? It was 15, 16. I think I might have been 16, and just being hugely excited, as the way that everyone gets excited, even still now gets excited with new signings. And what better? Well, it's impossible not to get excited when he signed 11 players, like 7 of which were on transfer officially. I think 7 of them were on transfer deadline day, which, and we'll get into each and every single player very quickly. So yeah, I just remember it being very exciting. Now, what would you think if that happened now? How different would that be if that happened now, just with 11 signings, especially like 7 on transfer deadline day? I mean, we would both be. I think we'd need to take 2 weeks off after it. That's for sure.
I hadn't even thought about it from that point of view. Yeah, that would be an exhausting day, and a few weeks afterwards where you're trying to figure out who these people are and get more information to put out there and that kind of thing. Speaking of people at previous clubs, whatever it is, I was going to say, with the size of squad that we have now, do you mean? But I suppose the squad was a similar size then. Anyway, so like players were coming in. Aguiar was taken. Was taken. I don't think I said it correctly the second time either. Number 36 or something like that. And I think these days it's much more common for players to come. I mean, look how many 80s there are in the Scottish Premiership this season. There's been a sort of proliferation of people taking numbers that are in the 80s, and that's just kind of like a personal choice. But back then, I think it was more because it was just Hearts had that many first team players. That's just how many players there were. But I can't even remember what was the question.
No, more just how it would be a transfer deadline day where you sign 11 players.
If we did that now, it would just be nuts. I mean, I suppose we've had more recent-ish examples. There was Kilmarnock, Lee Clark's Kilmarnock. That was when they all had the handwritten names
Names,
on the desk for them, and it was like, I'm sure that was like 11 players or something as well, all on the same day. That might have been a summer one though. So there's been a few other kind of examples like that since, but I suppose it depends on what the state of your squad is. And I mean, for Hearts right now, it would be a bit crazy because the squad's already too big. There's already a lot of waste there. Like, there's players on decent money that aren't playing much or any football. So yeah, it would be just wrong from that sense, and also wrong from the sense that it's not what Hearts needed going into this window. They needed a few decent signings in a few areas, and so far they seem to have got that.
I'm just, yeah, absolutely. Signing 11 players now would take us up to 40 players. You take away the 4 that have already been signed, so another 7. 7 deadline day signings would take us to 36 players. But no, I can see quite a similar overhaul that's spaced out over the summer. That's for sure. But just if that happened on deadline day, the rumors coming out just with the way social media is, and that you just hear all these different names, fans would be, I think, losing their mind. Positively, some would be 11's not enough. I want more. So it'd be. I'd be fascinated to see how that played out. But now, let's we've talked enough around that. Let's get into the players. So the 11 players that were signed. So 7 were officially signed on deadline day. Those were Bruno Aguiar, Mirsad Beslija, Jose Goncalves, Rais and Juho Makela, Martin Petras, Ludek Straceny, and Hearts had already had signed Lee Johnson, Chris Hackett, Neil McCann, and who am I missing? Of course, Nerijus Barasa. I think he was a January sign. So we'll go through.
I was muted. I was trying to tell you were right. It was Barasa.
Yeah. We'll go through the 11 players to kind of just spend like a minute or two on each and kind of talk about their impact or not quite impact. So we'll go with I'll bring up the
should we go with the ones that were signed before deadline day first?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. So
I was watching BBC's King of Hearts recently again.
Oh yeah.
And there's a bit in it where Romanov's in his car getting interviewed and he's talking about Rais, and he says he's brought in 3 players and he didn't like any of them. It's obviously Hackett, Johnson, and McCann. And Romanov describes it as he says something along the lines of it's a guy so that when things go wrong, he brings in his own players. It's a ploy or something like that. Like he only puts his own players on the pitch at the expense of others. It's a ploy or something like that. And I'm thinking, so that's like just you're projecting. That's what you're doing. You've got a ploy to get your players into the team. So anyway, that I thought that was a nice segue into the players that were signed before. Barasa aside, Romanov wasn't a fan of the 3 that Rais had identified. And looking back, to be fair, I mean, McCann got an injury fairly early on, but the other 2, Johnson, I suppose Johnson just didn't really get much of a run in the team. I think Lee Johnson was actually a decent player. Chris Hackett was a very curious one, though.
Yes. So Johnson, at least he had a decent. Johnson had a decent pedigree in terms of. Or I think he'd done really well at Yeovil. Then he went and played a fair bit down south, came back up and played for Kilmarnock. Yeah, I think he was signed by Kilmarnock, if I remember correctly. But yeah, Neil McCann, he came back to the club 8 years, I think it was 8 years after his last appearance, before he went and signed for Rangers. So his last appearance was on the 21st of November 1998, and he was back in Gorgie in the January 2006. Like you said, he got injured early on in his return, and it was really early on in his return. He lasted just 24 minutes, I think it was, in a 1-0 defeat at Kilmarnock. I remember being at that Kilmarnock game, and Neil McCann started really, really brightly, just positive, quick, just everything you kind of remembered about him. Just maybe not quite as devastating as he was when he left the club. He was 20 when he was in early 20s, but there was still obviously a very intelligent, experienced winger. And then he went down, and I think it was his knee.
Mm-hmm.
I just remember him writhing around on the rugby park pitch, and that was him. His next outing was a friendly against Osasuna 6 months later. So yeah, that's one where immediate impact wasn't so much, and then he played actually played longer than I remember. He played up until the 2007-8 season. I think it was his last appearance was against in a 2-0 win against Gretna in the 2007-2008 season. So I hadn't really remembered too much about that. That was a horrible season, no wonder. But yeah, he probably didn't have the impact that many were kind of hoping. And again, it went down to injury.
Aye, definitely. I was at that game as well. I started a Julian Brelli song that day. I didn't start many songs in my Heart supporting days, but I did that day, and it was a proud moment. I don't really have much to add to what you said, given the lack of games that he sort of played that season, and you kind of described that he kind of went on, but Hearts were a bit of a mess in his subsequent time at Hearts. I've got something to say about Chris Hackett, though. I haven't contacted football cliches much, but I was playing a game called The Quarry once, and one of the characters in it was called Chris Hackett. So I filmed a bit of it and sent it into football cliches and said footballers for their footballers' names and things. And Adam Hurray got back to me and said nobody knows who Chris Hackett is. So
that's fair.
I think that kind of sums up that signing.
Yeah. The only thing more I would add to McCann was was the away game in Athens, where it kind of just went wrong, where we played Jamie Moll up front and had 2 send-offs as we exited the Champions League qualifiers. But yeah, Chris Hackett was my abiding memory of Chris Hackett was in a 4-2 win over Livingston.
Yeah, that's the only thing I remember as well.
Again, I think he was bought for like a 5-figure fee. Anyone that was described as quick, and we'll get on to someone who was described as someone quicker than quick. It was always exciting. But yeah, Chris Hackett was his time at Tynecastle was fleeting. He's a coach now at Oxford United, where we signed him from and where he went back to later on in his career. Then there's Lee Johnson. He had a bit more of an impact. He played a few games at least and looked tidy enough.
Aye, that's like I said. I thought he was he obviously he seemed like he was a decent player, but I think he was a victim of just so many players and so many players in that position. I mean, we're going to come to Bruno Aguiar soon, and I think Hearts were particularly needing either at that point, but it was Aguiar that came in and played minutes in that position, and Lee Johnson didn't really get a chance to make much of an impact. But he probably wasn't up to the standard of the other players that he was competing with anyway. But he didn't seem like a bad player, not in the way that I mean, I'm sure Chris Hackett did well elsewhere, but his impact was very, very little at Hearts, and you didn't really see anything that kind of thought, there's something there. But I think I remember kind of seeing a bit more from Lee Johnson, even though he didn't have much of an impact either.
Yeah. It's you look at the 3 signings as a whole that you mentioned about Romanov was what Romanov's comments, and you can completely understand Neil McCann because he is a former player. He's came from the Premier League. I think Southampton were Premier League at the time. All this experience coming back, that did seem like just a signing the clubs make all the time, and a sensible one at that. Knows the league, etc. Whereas for the ambition that Hearts were hoping to do, win the league, Hackett and Lee Johnson were more kind of you look at them as more signings if you are just a typical signing from England where you're hoping they would have an impact. And just on Johnson, I just got his London Hearts page.
I thought he was joining us for a second.
Yeah. Special guest Lee Johnson.
He's in the queue.
Just laughing at the picture the London Hearts have of him, which will flash up. So sorry for people listening to the podcast, you can't see this, but this man went on to manage Hibs. I don't remove it.
We'll move far off me. I don't know why I'm laughing. Right,
I would very much take that head off here. Thank you very much.
Right, Barasa.
Yes, Nerijus Barasa.
Sorry, stepping on your toes there.
No, not at all. I know how excited you're to discuss Nerijus
Two things
Barasa.
to say about Barasa. Part of two campaigns by ongoing campaigns by Vladimir Romanov. One, to promote Lithuanian football and get Lithuanian footballers in the team. And two, get rid of Robbie Nielsen. He did like the amount of times that he just wanted somebody in the team instead of Robbie Nielsen, and Robbie Nielsen came back and defied him. Was both brilliant in a way, but obviously very, very disruptive to the season.
Yeah, absolutely. You look at the right backs. So you had Barasa, Thiago Costa, Ibrahim Tal.
Mm-hmm. Petras was tried there.
Petras, yeah. I think John Armstrong played
Did he?
Dunfermline, I think it was Dunfermline in the Cup, or Celtic away. He played at right back as well. And then there was obviously the infamous game at
Dundee United.
I'm thinking he's thinking the season after that was.
Oh, sorry, I was thinking of the Petras one.
The League Cup game at Easter Road, where I'm sure Robbie Nielsen played right mid, and it's like Malawi back five or something. It was just bonkers. Oh no, here it is. Barasa played in that game, so yes, which kind of summed up Barasa's time. Barasa, he came. Oh, he replaced Robbie Nielsen after 55 minutes. Hearts played Nielsen, Goncalves, Presley, Tal, Berra, and Zalukis. So you had 6 defenders in, I think it was like a 5-4-1. Anyway, Barasa, he was...
the only thing I really remember about him was there was a home derby, and I think he got subbed off injured. He was walking around the pitch, and the Hearts fans section N were all like singing that. Was it just a song? It was just like, ooh, Baras.
Yeah.
Something like that. And that's one of the few memories I have of him as a player, really. I know that I've watched games where he's played and he's looked completely out of his depth.
Yes.
But, Chinikas. That was another one. Much later. Another right back.
I think Nielsen might have left by then.
Oh, had he? Right. Okay. Sorry.
I think. But yeah, Barasa is, I think, hard-working, limited. Built, yeah. Big guy. And his penultimate game was...
bit of an animal.
I remember going down to it was Stranraer. I think he started. I remember him taking a throw in front of me. But a 4-0 win over Stranraer when Andreas Felicia scored. But yeah, a game. Barasa, not a player who's going to make Hearts better, and very much more into the Edvardus Kurskis and Benny Usis category of Lithuanian players that were hoisted on the manager at the time.
Yeah, but where they became like sort of hate figures, for want of a bigger term, Barasa became a bit more of a joke figure. It was more like people sort of leaning into how bonkers everything at Hearts was. I think that was one of the... I don't know. I remember that him being a bit more of a joke figure than the others that you've mentioned, but definitely of a similar sort of quality and impact.
Right, let's move on to the 7 who were, again, it was weird because Hackett was presented alongside Bruno Aguiar, Jose Goncalves,
Makela.
Up here.
Is he not in that picture?
Makela. Yeah,
Makela,
Beslija, Goncalves. No, so it's just 5 of them, right. And Hackett's there alongside these guys who cost a lot of money between them. So we'll start the most expensive of the lot. Mirsad, Beslija. This guy's our official record goal record signing, and we had a cross to Makela.
One of the most expensive crosses in the club's history, given the goal scorer as well.
Yeah, so he played a measly. He barely played 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Yeah, 15 times, 15 competitive appearances, I think. And we did not get value for our money.
No. Like you said, it was an injury and that cross against Dundee United. That's it. That's all we got.
I remember going to the lower league game, lower league team in a cup, 1-4-0, Alloa Athletic. Makela scored a hat trick this time, and you're just thinking, show us something. And it's just weird because I remember when can't remember when it was just before he signed for Hearts or after he signed for Hearts and he went back to Genk. He got like a massive presentation on the pitch at the Belgian club, like got given flowers, massive round of applause, and you're thinking this guy's, we're spending a lot of money off him. He's been described as a Bosnian bullet. There was real excitement about him, and then, I'm sure he wore Copa Mundials as well. I don't know if a winger should wear Copa Mundials. That's a discussion for another time. But yeah, it was just one big disappointment.
Again, nothing really to add than what I said. That's all I really remember. The hype, the injury, the not doing much. Yeah, the cross for Makela. I suppose it's a good way to segue into Makela because he was expensive in a different way. He was reportedly on a mad goal bonus, and which meant that the hat trick against Alloa that you've previously referenced cost the club a fair bit of money. Again, like somebody who came in unnecessarily. Hearts was scoring plenty goals. They had plenty of players in that position. This guy had an insane scoring record in Finland, actually. But it was just like it was just not needed, and used sporadically. Wasn't really that great. His first touch was horrendous, and scored a couple of goals, scored a few goals, but nothing. I mean, the hat trick against Alloa was, I think, did he score a goal against Inverness or something in a 3-1 win? But it might have been like the third one or a 4-1 win, and it was a fourth one, something like that. I don't remember him scoring too many vital goals or anything like that. He was another one that hung around for a wee bit beyond the end of this season.
He scored against Barcelona.
Oh, aye, right enough.
Yep, he. I just reading the friendly at Murrayfield. Barcelona goal scorers: Giovanni De Santos, 2 from Ronaldinho, and Juho Makela. So there's quite a few things I remember.
Hope he didn't get a goal bonus for that one.
No. So he scored against Dunfermline in a 4-0 win. Scored against Cluj in a friendly, 3 against Alloa, Dundee United, that 4-0 game, a friendly against Barca, 2 in a friendly against Heracles Almo, and 1 in a friendly against Rheingau 11. So there's actually,
he loved a goal in a friendly.
Yeah, he did. There's quite a few things I remember about Makela. So yeah, he came with, I think it was in Helsinki, played for HGK. He arrived with a goal every other game record in the league, solely in the league. So you're looking at that and thinking that's, again, you would look at that now and think that's a really shrewd signing and the type of signing that you'd want the club to make. This guy's done really well in a league that's probably below Scotland, but you can see that he scores goals. And we've had guys come over from Finland to do really well. For example, Alfredo Morelos, that's where he had stopped on his way from Colombia. But there was quite a few wee things I remember from Makela is that, yeah, he's technically wasn't great. I remember there was at a time where Hearts were struggling for goals, and Stevie Frail was the manager or head coach, or he was the guy that was dealing with the press anyway. And I think he was asked about Makela, would you use him? He said, I'm not going to cut off my nose to spite my face, when describing Makela and whether he would be playing. I remember reading I don't know if it was on Kickback, I don't know if it was an Even News article, or I don't know if it was, or someone told me, but he played in a friendly, one of those friendly goals where he got an open goal. It was like from 20 yards, and rather than just pass it into the net, he ran really close and then pass it, and then put it in the net. It was almost like he wasn't confident enough to strike from 20 yards. And my last abiding memory was the 3-2 win over Motherwell at the start of Shaba's season.
Shaba made a
beelined him.
Aye, and then made a in front of everybody. When you make a what's the word I'm looking for? I'm bad for this recently. When you sort of make an example of in front of everybody, even though Hearts scored from kickoff after the goal that he was sort of at fault for.
Yeah, so he gave, I think it was a poor touch. He gave the ball away. David Clarkson scored.
Came on as a sub, and then Michaelinus scored a really good goal to win it 3-2. Really exciting game. Wasn't Ken maybe lulled us goal as well.
Yeah, brilliant goal. Lulled us into a false sense of hope that it was going to be really exciting under Laszlo, but at least it got better. But yeah, I remember him remonstrating with Makela in the middle of the pitch. You just won 3-2 in your opening game of the league season. But yeah, that was very much the basically the end. But we'll move on to a couple of guys. I'm leaving one guy to the very, very end, but a couple of guys who did really well. I think you could say did really, really well. And that is, Bruno did really, really well. Goncalves, I think, was pretty good. So
I'd say really well. I mean, I understand why you're hesitating there and why you're maybe saying not quite as good as Aguiar, because I think Aguiar had the season under Shaba.
Yeah.
But Goncalves, I think Goncalves was just a brilliant player. He's just really, really good. And he rarely let Hearts down. And that was through some quite poor teams. So I put him on a par with Aguiar, really, because I think he was a really good player. I was a really big fan of Goncalves, whether he played left back or central defence. He was just a really, really good player. The Shepherd.
The Shepherd, yeah.
Shepherd did it for the halfway line. Not quite, but there was times where the distances were insane.
He was... I look at him, he was the best, most complimentary way to put it. So Bruno Aguiar was technically very, very good. Jose Goncalves was an athlete. Is the way I'd put it, just really athletic. Like I said, he's
just won everything.
Won everything. He was really quick. He was really aggressive. His shepherding was what's the best way to describe it? Was almost mythical.
The most extreme I've ever seen. Watching television, I've never seen anybody else do it like him.
It seemed like he took real joy in doing it.
Like a thing, like beating his last record. He went on to be, I can't remember which team he went on to play for in MLS, but he was got like defenseman of the year one season, or whatever it is they call it.
He was, I think it was potentially New England Revolution, but I would need to double check that. I remember him. Did he get a really bad one in the semi-final against Hibs?
Yes, he did.
Because we ended up, I think Scatchel
didn't move for a while.
Yeah, that was it. I'm sure Scatchel ended up at left back and Takis Fisas ended up at centre back.
Was it the semi or the final actually?
Semi.
Come to think of it, definitely the semi. Right.
Yeah, he didn't. He didn't play. He didn't play in the final. So I think he was. I like you. I really liked him, but I think injuries was he missed periods. For example, he only played. I don't think he played too much of the 6-7 season. I think he missed chunks of the 6-7 season, but then he played under. It was, you could see he was really, really good under Laszlo. But yeah, there was periods where he missed games.
I thought he was one of our better players under the likes of Korobochka and Malafeev as well. He was one of the better players then when things were a real mess.
Would you say his best position was centre back or left back?
Probably centre back. Probably centre back. Just like you say, he wasn't the most technically gifted, so probably centre back. But yeah, it was depending on how you played as well. I suppose. I mean, you see some teams do set up with more centre backish players in that position. So I suppose it depends how you're playing. I mean, the left side with 3 sounds ideal as well. Yeah. But yeah, I think central, probably just about central defence.
He was absolutely rapid as well. Absolutely rapid.
Yes.
Moving on to Bruno, I would regard him as the most successful of the 11. I mean, there's not a lot of success in the 11, but he was the most. I think him and Goncalves by some distance were the two most successful, and then I thought Aguiar was the most successful of the lot. Because you look at, he won. Started the Scottish Cup final again. That was a controversial moment in terms of Bruno playing alongside Hartley. Probably not the greatest fit in midfield, but then to come back from his injury and then to have such a influential role in helping the club finish third after such a disastrous season in 07-08.
So I was thinking about this recently. Do you think that's just because of the opposition? You were talking about like it not being the best sort of fit as a midfield too. I would agree with that, but do you think that's because why would you play Brelly against Gretna? Now I know the game wasn't like a walk in the park in the end, but you can understand that being the thinking from the start.
Sorry, I was more. I wasn't really focused on the Gretna game. More just the overall that half season where they tried to move Brelly because obviously Romanov, as you wrote in a newsletter this week, Romanov wasn't a fan of Brelly, and I as a parent, if you're looking at it now, a home game against Livingston, you'd play those two together, but they like naturally they weren't the greatest fit.
No, I would agree. And the real season where he becomes a standout and showed, I suppose, like you say, probably pound for pound still a better player than Goncalves. But I suppose what cemented his place as a sort of a better Hearts player than Goncalves, all told, is that that season under Shabba, because he was a real key player. Not just did he become the best player in that team and like think everything was sort of like everything attacking wise was based around him. There was no striker. Like Shabba worked that season with one hand tied behind his back in terms of not having a striker, and then the one striker he did have was Nade, and then there was obvious issues with that. So Aguiar became a really, really pivotal player at that point, and he stood up to it. I mean, Hearts set up in a way that they suffocated the opposition and looked for players like Aguiar to do something at the other end of the pitch. And Aguiar was the one more often than not doing it.
Yeah, he's a good penalty taker, and he is good free kick taker, and he is very good. Again, very good striker of the ball. I think one of the biggest moments was that goal at Easter Road, and then he ran up to the physio, I think it was at the time, Rob Marshall, to celebrate with him just because he had such a tough time with it.
A very just exactly what you'd expect from a small Portuguese midfielder. Technically gifted, clever, strikes the ball well. He was just he was just one of them.
Right, move on to the last three players. These guys won't take long at all. So we will start with I'm going to flash up a picture on the screen here, and you'll obviously be able to answer it because I've read out his name already. But if you put this picture to any Hearts fan, and I reckon a lot will have no idea who this boy is.
Yes. I mean, you say there's not much to say about these guys. I think we could do a deep dive one day into the game that this is from, where there was rumblings at Tannadice. There was rumblings before the game. I'm sure it was like on Real Radio or something like that. Ewan Cameron and Alan Ruff's Real Radio. There was rumours kicking about that there was meddling in the first team and there was going to be big changes. And it turned out that, as we referenced earlier, Robbie Nielsen was dropped out of the team. I can't remember who was sort of regularly in the right in midfield, but they were dropped as well. And Martin Petras started at right back, and the guy who you've just flashed up there, Ludek Straceny, played on the right of midfield. And Hearts drew 1-1. My main memory of Ludek Straceny, though, is not that game. I mean, obviously, that's a standout memory. I wasn't at the game. I was actually working that night listening to the radio. I remember, as I say, listening to whether it was, I think it was Real Radio before it
Yeah,
changed
so
its name.
On that, I remember driving. Well, not me personally because I wasn't old enough at the time, but driving up to that game, and it was on the radio. It was whether Real Radio or BBC, and it was filtering through and like shit. And then he got to Tannadice.
This was early February, so it was like February 11th or something like that. So not long after the transfer window that we're talking about.
Yeah, and then I remember getting to Tannadice and there was a massive Hearts support, and so I missed the kickoff because there was queues outside, and then you saw the starting 11. So the starting 11 was Gordon, Petras, Fisas, Presley, Berra, Straceny, Hartley, Brelly, Scatchell, Callum Elliott, Michael Pospisil, and on the bench were Nielsen, Miko, Chesney, Lee Wallace, Bruno Aguiar, Andy Webster.
Yeah, so, but that's not even my main memory of Ludek Straceny. It was, I don't know if it was the match after, or maybe a couple of games after, against Aberdeen.
He played 2 games, Dundee United and then Aberdeen.
Right, okay, so it was one straight after. I can remember, we were 1-0 up, went back to a more normal team selection. Petras was still in the team, but Straceny wasn't.
Yep.
Hearts were 1-0 up. Again, a goal they scored all season. Very similar, reminiscent to goals they scored all season. And then at half-time, Lee Wallace came on in central midfield.
Came on for Petras, yep.
And looks a fish out of water for the rest of the game. And Straceny, can't remember who he comes on for, but he comes on at half-time as well. Who was it?
Bruno.
And doesn't last the game. Comes off with 10 minutes to go or something like that. And I remember shouting, "Who the F is he?" And I remember a guy behind me like saying, "Well, who was Scatchell when he came in?" I was like, "Well, that's not really my point." It's like, what are we doing? What's all these mad substitutions? Why are we just chucking these guys in when we're actually doing pretty well and we've got players that are good and already better than these guys? But I've got a vivid memory of him coming off for Pospisil. By that point, we were 2-1 down. No wonder we'd put Lee Wallace on in midfield. Why? Where's that coming from?
So it was when he came off, it was 1-1, and then Aberdeen won it 2-1 late on.
Oh, sorry, it wasn't half time.
So it was Straceny came on at half time when we were winning 1-0, and then he got subbed off when it was 1-1. And I'm guessing they must have been
he comes off when it's 1-1. Sorry.
Yeah.
I thought you were meaning about Wallace there. Right. Okay.
No, Wallace came on at half time and played centre midfield as an 18-year-old left back. Straceny was, because I think he played against, maybe even scored against Rangers in Europe for a previous team. Whereas Martin Petras, you actually look at...
He's a good player.
Yeah, you look at his pedigree before and after joining Hearts, and it was really, really good. So he...
Tons of caps for... Was it Slovakia?
Slovakia, 38 caps for Slovakia, and so he played...
Not quite tons in.
It's a decent amount. So he came from Sparta Prague, where he played regularly, and then he went on to play in Serie A or Serie B for a number of years with Lecce, Treviso, Triestina, and Cesena, and Grosseto as well. So he's had a good pedigree, but just a weird signing that probably didn't need made.
Yeah, I think in another time turns out to be a good Hearts player. Yeah, and another time he's maybe not quite the level of somebody like Fisas or somebody like that, but I think he was a sort of similar sort of. I think he was a similar sort of player, if you know what I mean. It was like an international, somebody with pedigree. I think if there wasn't such a settled central defensive partnership already, I think he maybe comes in to a different Hearts side and is a very good player for Hearts. But otherwise, I got not too much to say about him other than his pedigree beyond Hearts, because we've described the weird way that he was sort of shoehorned into the team. Can't even remember where he played in that Aberdeen game. I remember he played, but I can't remember which position he played.
Centre mid, I think it was.
It was centre mid.
I think so. Just look, because looking at the team, Nielsen. So it was Nielsen, Fisas, Presley, and Webster. So it would have been him and Hartley in the middle of it. Yeah. Oh, or did he play wide? Because there was Hartley, Bruno.
It was weird times. It was a weird couple of weeks.
goodness knows, because Callum
It was a
Elliott
weird couple of weeks within
yeah.
what was already a weird season / few years. It was one of the most weird times within that Romanov era.
Yeah, I think Hearts must have played a 4-5-1. Just looking at who was playing, but yeah, he went on to play another. So he played 5 games in total. His last being that 2-0 defeat at Rangers at the final game of the season, where it didn't matter. I do need to go back and correct myself, because I did say that with Chris Hackett he played in a 4-2 over Livy at Almonvale. It was actually 3-2. Hadn't realised that, and he came off the bench late on. It's weird. Memory plays tricks on you, because
it does. I know.
I thought
I conflate things all the time.
Yeah, I thought he played a good amount of time at Livy, but he played the last 10 minutes. Which brings us to finally number 11, and
finish with a flourish.
Perhaps the most successful of, just in terms of what they've done in their football career, the most successful of the lot. Rais Mboli, the Algerian goalkeeper who arrived as an 18-year-old, did not play one single minute for the club, but
didn't need them. Again, just didn't need them.
Just didn't need them. Went on to have 96 caps for Algeria and won the African Cup of Nations in 2019. Played in World Cups, played all over the world. Is weird, because he was clearly a very, very good goalkeeper, but had such a weird club career after Hearts.
Didn't help signing for Hearts.
No, but he played in France, Russia, Bulgaria, Turkey, Qatar, Saudi maybe, and MLS as well. So and just looking at his Wikipedia, in 2010, English club Newcastle United reportedly put in a bid for him for £1 million. On July 22nd, he was training with West Ham in the summer training camp in Germany. So yeah, just a very good goalkeeper who, just a weird signing.
Romanov promised us 2 World Cup stars.
Yeah.
He's one of them. Did Petras? Did he make it? Because
Larry Kingston, I think.
Larry Kingston. So yeah, we got there. We got there in the end. He didn't say that they were going to be World Cup stars while they were at Hearts. So that was the mistake that we made. But yeah, another one that was, who knows? I mean, I don't know whether Hearts had signed him as a project, because he's clearly not going to come in. Hearts already had a fairly youngish but established goalkeeper in Craig Gordon, and a fairly dependable backup as well. So if he was brought in as some sort of project, then I don't know. One reason or another, he's not hung around to see that through. But if it was to come in and to play, it was a weird move all round, because it just, as I say, it just wasn't really needed, and evidenced by the fact that he never played a single minute for Hearts.
I mean, in terms of Hearts, then I think you can say that 2 of the 11 were a success. And Jose Goncalves and Bruno, which is a terrible hit record. But when you actually look at a lot of the guys who were signs were like Mboli, clearly good, turned out to be a very good player. So how the scouting was, or the recruitment. Martin Petras, again, a good pedigree. Mirsad Beslija, a good pedigree. Juho Makela scored a lot of goals in Finland. Just didn't quite work the way that we were all hoping, wanting, and thought it might.
Just looking to see what happened to Ludek Straceny. Did you say a good pedigree for Barasa there?
No. Well, I hope it didn't. He had a terrible pedigree.
Watch the tapes. I thought that's what I heard, but I was looking up to see what happened to Straceny after that. And he had one other club who doesn't have a Wikipedia page.
Oh no, it does. Victoria
Zizkov.
Yeah, they were a decent size club, I think. They're a top flight club.
4th in the Czech league right now. Okay, so we went back there for a few years, and looks like he played a decent amount of games. But yes, 2 matches for us. I didn't quite remember that those were the only 2 matches. But yeah, come to think of it, I don't. couldn't remember anymore. So yeah.
Fair play to him for coming and playing 2 matches and having a notable impact in both of those matches without actually doing anything positive.
Yeah, it's still having your name like so well remembered.
Yeah. Even though if you showed this picture to 1,000 Hearts fans, I reckon 900 wouldn't get it.
Yeah.
I mean, if you showed me, the only reason I would get that picture is because of the strip he's wearing, and you can tell it's Tannadice. And I'd be like, oh, that game.
Yeah, I mean,
one of 2 players.
Right enough. For me, if you had blanked all that other information out, then maybe I wouldn't have immediately got it.
Yeah, I would just thought it was like a young player. There was
a young Scottish player, yeah.
That we gave loads of daft contracts to, but that's another story for another day.
What was Sloan's first name? Oh God, just
Robert Sloan.
Robbie Sloan.
Yeah, I was thinking, was there a Mulrooney? Was there a Paul Mulrooney? Paul Mulrooney or something? Anyway, we're going off track. We will leave it there. We've spoken enough, and it's Sunday, and we want to have our day off. So, thank you very much, Craig, for taking your Sunday morning and speaking to me. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening to this and going through what was a nostalgic trip down memory lane. Which good memories, bad memories, fun memories, who knows? But be sure to subscribe to YouTube if you haven't done so. Doing so helps the channel grow, and we will be back if there's any transfer business on transfer deadline day. If there's not, then we'll probably be back on Tuesday to look back at the transfer window as a whole. But until the next time, thank you very much, everyone, and goodbye.